Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Gotham. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, Jim has got, unlikely allies. He's joined up with, Barbara, even though he doesn't know he can really trust her. She's like, what's it going to take for you to trust me? It's like, I don't know. Literally all the stuff that you've done, Barbara. I think, because the thing is, I think with Jim, there's always going to be some part of him that will care about Barbara, where I think that's why he gives her so many chances like he does, just because she was, his fiance once upon a time. But working with her and Ed, and I love the whole thing of Lucius pulling out the chip in Ed's head, and it's just kind of making him kind of malfunction a little bit. It's messing with his speech, and then Barbara's like, ooh, do it again, and Lucius is like, no, it's not kind of like a plaything. He does it again, and him, Alfred, and Barbara are kind of smiling like, yeah, just those little small things. I love that it got a little petty like that. But lo and behold, Eduardo shows up, and who does he have by his side? Lee. Now that was really interesting. I was like, oh, because I literally had talked about the fact is we haven't seen Lee at all, because like I said, the last time we saw her and Ed stabbed each other, and it's like last time we saw Hugo was working on it, and it never correlated in my head that maybe that's something I was just chalking it up, be like, oh, maybe she's just not in this final season at all, like maybe Marina Bachman decided not to come back for the show. But it's like, no, the moment she popped up and everything, I'm like, oh wow, that's crazy. Because the moment Walker was like, okay, I got something that will get Ed and Jim here. Now, it didn't have the same effect on Ed, because I guess it's enough time, like they kind of have their bad blood and everything, so he doesn't feel the same way about it. Well, to be fair, that was Ed, which does beg the question, what happened to Ed? Like, he hasn't popped up since last season. Like, I wonder, is he completely gone, or is it just a situation that Nigma, Riddler is in complete another control? But getting back to what I was trying to say, was like, obviously it was enough to draw Jim, and I guess the point was to draw Jim in so that Ed would be, brought in, as a trade, because I'm sure most people don't generally know about the fact is that Lee and Ed kind of had a thing and everything. So, but the moment Harvey started talking to her, it's like, where you been these past 3 months? She's like, I don't know. They're like, she was in the Narrows and everything. I'm like, no, she wasn't. I already knew then. I was like, of course, because it was like, what should have clicked in my head was like, Hugo Strange was working on Ed, and Ed was chipped up. He was also working on Lee, so it didn't even correlate in my head to even think about that until this popped up. I was like, that's interesting. And I was curious how they were going to handle that situation, but how they were going to utilize that. Like, I thought, because it turns out even Eduardo didn't even know about Lee. That was kind of interesting, but it's like, I wonder, I guess because they always knew this could potentially be a thing, so I wonder what made them decide to use Ed. I guess Ed being the villain and everything, it made sense to use him. But it's like, I guess Lee was always just a contingency plan. But I would assume, well, I guess they didn't really need Lee, in the regard that they would under these contexts of oh yeah, Jim's an issue, so we need him taken care of. So there's that, but it wasn't always like that. Because it's interesting, because when it finally comes down to it, all of this is about Walker, right? Understanding why she did what she did. Essentially, she wanted, the criminals of Gotham to be eradicated. She's like, it's a threat, and, higher ups in the government were listening to her until Jim opened up Haven, and it's like, oh, maybe Gotham isn't as bad as we think it is, so we're going to send in some people. But it's like, what is her gain? Is she planning, I don't understand, not unless she's trying to, I guess this is that's what I was trying to theorize before. What's her gain in this? Is it just simply a situation of, I want more pull in the government or something like that? So by making Gotham a threat and me coming in, saving the day, being the hero, it boosts her credibility or something like that. She'd be the hero of the day, but Jim stepping in like he did minimized a lot of the issues, so it not being a big issue made it, something that she can't really benefit from. Or maybe the whole point is she needed an excuse to send a whole bunch of people in there to clear the place, because maybe she's planning on buying up Gotham, or at the very least maybe there's something there in Gotham she needs, maybe underneath Gotham, that she wants access to, but she can't get to it, if people are still living there, so she needed an excuse to kind of raise the place, burn it to the ground in some shape or form. I mean, it didn't seem like they were outright, killing people, Eduardo and the other. I mean, they were, but criminals, so that's one thing. So it seems like maybe it's a combination of the two, but either way, that's really interesting. We also kind of find out a little bit more about Eduardo. The fact is, he was kind of thrown in like a dark prison along with other buddies, but the government turned their back on him. So Walker found him, pulled him out, and now he serves her. He's like, because Jim was like, oh, she made you into her personal killer. And he's like, no, Walker's the real killer. And it's like, huh. And it's interesting when it's all said and done. Like, he gets stabbed on that rebarb. She shows up and gives him the mask. Interestingly enough, I think I saw that before because I could have sworn I saw her name, but I don't think she ever popped up in the episode because it was obviously her voice, but I didn't click. I mean, because, you know, she's actually a British actress. I think she's putting on an American accent for this. But obviously Jamie Murray's been in countless things. Dexter, Warehouse 13. I think the thing I've seen her most recently, I would say back in season 6, she played the Black Fairy in Once Upon a Time. I want to say that's the most recent thing. I feel like I've seen her in something more recently, but I just can't place it. Maybe that's just my imagination. But nevertheless, it's like, oh wow, that's pretty cool that you're Walker. But then it turns out that Eduardo is Bane. Now, I'd seen that moment of her putting a mask on him and his eyes kind of bulging like that. Like, I'd seen that a picture of that, but I didn't correlate and understand what I was seeing. And it's like, because I think I remember seeing something about Bane being in this season. It's like, oh, that's interesting. And it almost seems like it is a little reflective of the Dark Knight, because, you know, once again, like, Bane's had multiple iterations and stuff like that. So, but it seems kind of similar to the Dark Knight version because he was in a deep, dark prison until he got found. Like, obviously, in The Dark Knight Rises, he was found by Talia, but, you know, in this case, he's found by Walker. So that's just kind of an interesting little thing. You know, it's like, oh, you're not quite dead yet, my warrior. So that's interesting. I wonder if they're going to go full, like, with the Venom, like him coursing through it. So we saw a little bit of green from, like, the tube, but I don't know if he's going to go, like, full on, like, crazy muscles and stuff. It seems like they might just kind of give him superhuman strength, but we might be looking more at, like, a Dark Knight Rises Bane, potentially. I don't know. Like, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do. Like, maybe they'll keep him like that for a while, but then eventually he'll morph into, like, the more traditional, like, yoked and crazy muscular Bane. We'll kind of have to wait and see on that front, but a lot of interesting things went down in that regard. It's like, oh yeah, like Lee's trying to piece everything together, and I was actually surprised when she was actually starting to piece things together. I was like, oh, is she about to remember? I was like, oh, or is this part of some plan or something like that? Because I thought the whole plan was like, I thought she was going to stay a lot more deep covered than she did, but it's like, no, the moment she got a chance, she tried to kill Jim. Luckily, he electrocuted her and got rid of Jim like he did with Ed. I love that Barbara was kind of suspicious from the beginning, being like, where's Lee been this entire time? I also love, really quickly, Ed's attempt to come in there with the bomb and everything. And he's like, oh yeah, you want the combination to this? Oh, you have to solve this riddle. And it's like, of course you do. Oh, you also have 2 minutes. And I was hoping on everything, and I got what I wanted. I was like, please tell me Harvey's going to be the one to solve it. And Ed's like, no, you might want to wait the full minute. And then Harvey was like, oh, I've memorized this. The fact is, it's 0. And it's just kind of like, which, you know, that had to hurt Ed on multiple ways. One way being the fact of the matter is, it's like, well, of course, Harvey doesn't know the context of, like, hey, you're technically a good guy trying to save all of, you know, he thinks you're behind Haven and everything like that. But it's also got to suck because it's like, you solved my riddle. It's like, Harvey, out of anybody, solved my riddle. You know, for him, it's like, I got to go back to the drawing board with some new riddles. I mean, geez, you know, that's got to hurt his pride as a villain, you know, so I thought that was kind of interesting. And then we also get the news dropped. It's like, oh yeah, like everything's happening, you know, it's like, hey Lee, you're back, everything's good. And then it's like, Barbara's like, oh yeah, and I'm pregnant. And you have, like, you know, because Harvey had the reaction of, wait, what? When he heard about, like, oh, Jim and Barbara had a good time and everything. And it's kind of like, because she was trying to give them, she was trying to, like, we got to talk, but he was like, not now, because that was also the whole situation. Once again, he doesn't trust Barbara, so it's kind of like understandable, but she kind of blurted it out there in front of Lee, even though Jim and Lee don't have their situation. But, you know, that's probably also still a sore spot too, because they had a baby, but sadly lost the baby. But it's kind of like, I also love there's kind of that bit of a new noir music playing, because it seemed like something you possibly could see in a noir type of movie or something. And Lee's kind of looking at him like, wait, whoa. And Harvey's like, congratulations. So I guess that's how we're getting our Barbara. And I guess that's why she wasn't there during the final showdown, because I was like, oh, did something happen to Barbara? It's like, oh no, but I mean, I guess there's still something that could happen. But to be fair, like, that, I forgot how how far into the future that was. And wasn't that like 300 days or something like that? Because when we started at the beginning of the season, like obviously we started at the very end at the beginning, but then like we went to 90 days. So it's like, I'd say at this point in time, it's probably closing into like that 300-day mark, if I remember correctly. I don't remember, like I said, I don't remember the exact number at the very beginning of the season. But yeah, I doubt it's enough time for Barbara to like to completely show, but it's probably like Jim keeping her at a distance to protect the child and everything. And I guess that's how we're going to get our Barbara Gordon situation going on. Now that's going to be interesting because it's like your mom's going to be a crime boss and your dad being a cop, and that's going to put you at odds. And then there's a Lee situation, but it's like not like Lee and Jim are together, but still that's just kind of complicated. It's just very interesting situation to find himself in. Another thing that went down in this episode is we see Penguin get robbed by, what's her name, Magpie. That was interesting. I'm curious, she must be like someone in like Batman canon of like, oh, I know exactly who she is. She must be like a low tier villain or something like that. As most people might say, maybe she's like a D or C-lister, a D or a Z-lister or something like that. But nevertheless, stealing from Penguin was kind of interesting. Then like Penguin joining forces with Selena, because Selena's kind of a celebrity now, which we kind of saw that before, but now even more so because everyone's gunning for her, because it's like, oh, why not go after the lady who killed, Jeremiah and, get a reputation themselves. But I also love how that whole situation gets resolved, because like when they were trapped in that room that Magpie left them in, and it's like Selena goes over and kicks the door in, and it's like, what? She said that the whole room was, she said things in this room might be booby trapped. She never said that the room itself was booby trapped and everything. Because Selena also found out, wait a minute, you want this jewel so much, but it can't mean anything to you here in Gotham, but somewhere on the mainland, it's like you found a way out of here, which that's interesting because obviously like Jeremiah's got his own way out. So what about Penguin? What is his exit strategy? And now those two of them are partnered up and everything. And it's like, hey, Penguin and Catwoman. Because even Selena was kind of hesitant because it's like, oh, you killed Tabitha in cold blood. But it's like, you're all about revenge and everything, he says. And it's like, to be fair, Tabitha made her own bed back when she killed my mom. It was always going to end like this in some shape or form, So that was kind of on her, And I wonder, is it just because Selena is kind of a little different that was enough to kind of make her go, okay, she didn't fight that too much. She wasn't too pissed. I guess I guess her heart's kind of closing off a little bit, not just to Bruce, but to anyone that she ever cared about, So poor Magpie too. I was like, oh, maybe we get to see more of her. It's like, nope, they catch her shotgun to her stomach. She's like, oh, my wings have been clipped. And he's like, bang, bang, and shoots her. And Selena's like, jeez, what the hell? He's like, that's a reminder to anyone what would happen if they steal from me. She's like, okay, sure thing. Good to know, partner. And it's like, wow. I'm curious to see, because if Bruce finds out that she's going to try and leave Gotham, he might try and stop her. I mean, to be fair, like, none of them are supposed to be making it out of Gotham, especially Penguin, especially if Walker finds out. It's like, you're at the top of one of her lists to take out. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that all plays out, especially because we have, Jeremiah doing his thing. He ends up kidnapping Alfred. I'm assuming as a part of the whole, like, reuniting the family, essentially. Like, the fake Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne he's got set up. I know that's what he's doing, but it's like, oh, yeah, clean this place up, because I didn't even realize it at the time, but the place they're at right now is very similar to Wayne Manor. So, and he wants Alfred there to make it so that, oh, Bruce will be here soon enough, kind of give him that joy of like, oh, reuniting a happy family. And like I said before, it's super, super sadistic to do something like that. I'm curious, like I said, what in the long run is meant to be that purpose? Is it going to be a situation of like, I'll reunite you with your family and then I kill them just to traumatize you and trigger you all over again or something? I don't know. Maybe it's going to be a situation of trying to make him choose, like, oh yeah, here's, that life you could have led if your parents were still alive, but the other path being your destiny, the whole Batman route. So I'm curious to see what that ends up being, if it's going to be something like that or completely different. I want to know what Jeremiah's got in mind. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what goes down in the next episode with all of this as Walker continues to make her moves. Like I said, I want to completely understand. Like I said, I'm guessing at why she's doing this, but I'm very interested to hear from herself, like what she wants, why she's doing all of this, and what she plans to get out of it. Also, like, what her whole deal is. how, like, like I said, she's actually here. She never wanted to actually come to Gotham herself, and now she kind of has to directly get her hands dirty. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what kind of havoc she wreaks in town. And like I said, the whole Jim situation, caught between a rock, a hard place, and a baby, apparently, so that's definitely going to be very interesting. Also, what is Ed going to be up to now that he's kind of got his freedom a little bit? I mean, to be fair, we know in the long run he does circle back around. And obviously, I just thought about it too, we know Penguin doesn't make it out because, well, to be fair, that could just be like Walker and her army standing in their way and they're the last line of defense. Because at that point, I'm guessing, like, the fact is that Jim's fighting too. I mean, I think it's more so like at that point, Walker's probably going to clear the whole area and be like, oh yeah, the crime was so bad, they killed all the innocent people, but luckily I stepped in and wiped out all the criminals and leave no witnesses type of thing. It seems like that's kind of the route we're potentially going. Now I'm sitting here thinking about. Like I said, we'll have to wait and see what goes down in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.